Welcome. Today we're going to dive into a pretty huge and maybe even a little bit of an uncomfortable idea, the courage to live dangerously, all inspired by the philosophy of Osho.
So let's just jump right in with a statement that's kind of designed to shake you up a little. A safe life is worse than death. Now, I know that sounds pretty extreme, but the idea here is that when we get obsessed with safety, it can become its own kind of prison, a really comfortable cage that we build for ourselves, one that locks us away from the very thing that makes life worth living, that real, unpredictable adventure.
And that really brings us to the heart of the issue, doesn't it? Our first section, the problem with safety. Why on earth are we so willing to trade genuine adventure for what is, at the end of the day, just the illusion of security?
There's this really powerful metaphor for this. Think about a prisoner. In jail, everything is certain, right? You've got food, you've got shelter, a routine that never changes. But when the day finally comes for them to be released, they often start to tremble with fear. Why? Well, because freedom is uncertain. And we do the same thing. We cling to our comfortable routines, our own self-made prisons, because we're terrified of the beautiful, unpredictable chaos that is real life. Okay, so if just avoiding fear isn't the answer, then what is? And that brings us to our second section, what courage really is. And I'm going to bet it's probably not what you've been taught to believe. So here's the key distinction, and this is so important. Courage is not the absence of fear. Actually, the courageous person and the coward, they feel the exact same terror. The only difference is that courage means choosing to step into the unknown despite that fear. It's feeling that tremble and moving forward anyway. Think about it like this. Courage is leaving the familiar shore to sail an undiscovered sea. On that shore, sure, everything is safe, everything is known. But the one thing that's missing is adventure. And it's that very step into uncertainty that makes your heart start beating again, that makes every single cell in your body feel vibrant and truly alive. This whole idea of choosing adventure, well, it leads to a fundamental conflict that every single one of us faces. Which brings us to Section 3, the path of the heart. We're about to explore the two fundamental ways that we can choose to live our lives. This slide just breaks down that internal battle perfectly. On one side, you've got the head. Think of it like a calculating businessman. It's always looking for security, it clings to the past, and it builds these high walls of logic. It's the path that society usually tells us is the smart one to take. And then on the other side, you've got the heart. It's more like a risk-taking gambler. It actually embraces insecurity, it lives on love and trust, and it's always dreaming of some unknown future. And there's a really powerful parable that helps illustrate this. First, I want you to picture a mighty oak tree in the middle of a huge storm. It's massive, it's strong, it's deeply rooted. So its logical response is to fight the storm, right? To resist with all of its immense strength. This is the way of the head. Okay, now picture the humble grass right there next to it. It doesn't fight, it doesn't resist at all, it just yields, it bends with the wind. It completely surrenders to the force of the storm. And this, of course, is the way of the heart. So when the storm finally passes, which one is left standing? Well, the rigid oak, the one that fought back so hard, is broken and dead. But the flexible grass, the one that surrendered, it just rises again. It's this powerful reminder that sometimes, yielding is a far, far greater strength than resistance. Okay, but if we're supposed to yield to uncertainty, how do we do that without being constantly overwhelmed by fear? Well, that brings us to our fourth section, freedom in uncertainty. And it's all about reframing the very things that we're afraid of. So here's the first simple, but really profound mental shift. Our logical mind looks at the future and calls it uncertainty, which immediately makes it sound like a problem. But what if we just changed the word? What if instead we decided to call it wonder? Well, suddenly life isn't a problem we have to solve, but a beautiful mystery that we get to experience. And here's the second reframe. Our mind looks at the lack of guarantees in life, and it calls it insecurity, which sounds terrifying. But again, let's just change the word. Let's call it freedom. Because the very thing our mind is so afraid of is actually the freedom to grow, the freedom to change and to live without all the heavy constraints of some predetermined path. This path of reframing our reality, it leads us to our final and, I think, most profound idea. Section 5, love as the absence of fear. This is where we discover the ultimate antidote to this whole problem of safety.
So get ready for a really radical redefinition. We tend to think of fear as a thing, right? A presence. But what if fear is simply the absence of love? It isn't some substance that you can fight, it's just a shadow.
And this metaphor just makes it crystal clear. You can't fight darkness with a sword. You'll just wear yourself out swinging at nothing. The only way to get rid of darkness is to bring in the light. And the exact same thing is true for fear. Fighting it directly just gives it more power. The only way to make fear go away is to cultivate its opposite, love. To fill your life with so much trust and connection that those shadows, they simply have no place left to hide. An ancient story illustrates this just perfectly. A forest fire traps two beggars. One of them is blind, but he has really strong legs. The other one is lame, but he can see perfectly. Alone, they're both doomed. But then, this insight strikes. They have to cooperate. The solution is so simple and beautiful. The blind man carries the lame man on his shoulders. One provides the legs, the other provides the eyes, and together they escape the fire. This parable is, of course, a metaphor for our own inner worlds. The head, our logic, is blind, but man, it can move fast. The heart, our intuition, can see the true path, but it's immobile on its own. It really all comes down to this. Wisdom is born from the meeting of the heart and the mind. True intelligence isn't just logic. It's what happens when our calculating mind learns to trust the vision of our heart, and they finally start working together.
So, to bring this all home, what are the key takeaways here? First, remember that courage isn't about being fearless, it's about acting in spite of your fear. Second, know that you have a choice between the secure path of the head and the adventurous path of the heart. Third, you can literally change your entire reality just by reframing insecurity as freedom. Fourth, instead of fighting fear, just focus on cultivating love. And finally, remember that true wisdom is what's born when our mind and our heart finally learn to work together. Which really leaves us with just one final question to think about. And this one is just for you. Your life is an adventure that's just waiting to happen. The only question is, are you ready to begin?